This one's going to be a Black Hawk, and this one's going to be a little different. It's more of a vertical pose and landing. So what we wanted to create out of this piece is lots of height, and his legs almost straight down, one lifted, so you know they're not both in the same position. There's actually a frame in behind here, and I shape the pieces to the inner frame. And once I'm happy with the fit of everything, then I tack the heck out of it. And by that I mean every 2 inches I'll tack everything down tight so there's no gaps. Then I'll go back and I'll tack in between those 2 inches, and I'll tack every inch. And in some areas, if there's a problem area or there's a bit of a gap or the material's thin, I'll tack even closer. So it gives a little bit of welding buildup to stop from blowing holes through the metal and stuff when you go to the welding process. I also set my wire feed speed really fast and kind of get it so it's buzzing. And when I hear that crisp buzzing sound, I can travel really fast on sheet metal. So instead of taking, you know, like 2 or 3 hours to weld out an area, you can weld it out in half an hour or 15 minutes. The welds aren't seen. What's important to me is that the welds have burnt into the metal and they're solid welds. They've fused really well and they've joined the two pieces. You know, I could do fancy welds and have them all perfect, but they're never seen. This is all covered in feathers. So when I make feathers for any bird really, I have to kind of, just from experience, I know now, which makes it go faster, certain shapes that fit different parts of the bird. And then we mass produce those feathers and we never get them right, but we at least try to mass produce them to help speed up the process of building these birds. So I'll start just simply by taking some of that yellow template paper and then I'll just draw a hand-drawn feather. And then that might be one like a body-size feather. I might need little tiny ones that would be up around the head. And then when I get to, you know, on the wing might even have like a large feather. I'll cut that out just with scissors. And nothing should be perfect when it comes to creating wildlife, in my opinion. So, and then I'll take a piece of metal. And just to clean, I like to work with, so this metal, if you see, it's kind of a clean, shiny metal, and versus this metal. So this metal is what they call a hot roll, and this is a cold roll. So a cold roll means that it's been pressed out into sheets using a cold method versus having it red hot and soft. Hard to find tools that work with 16 gauge to shape it and bead roll and shrink and stretch. So the 18 is kind of at the limit of most tools, and so I'm working with the thickest material I can work with, but still have all that shaping ability with my tooling. So it's just a simple trace, and I have my favorite tool that I've done all my sculptures with over the years, and a lot of guys in the industry don't even know about these. I surprise a lot of people, and I'm surprised that a lot of people don't use this. This is a Makita power shear. So it goes up and down with a small blade, and just it's like a foot shear in a small version. So it doesn't nibble, but it shears and creates a nice cut line. You can go left or right with the cuts. You can create cut circles. So it's a very powerful tool, and it makes cutting the material that I work with like butter. Throw a grinding disc around it and take that sharp burr off. So what I like to do is round the edge. This side is still pointy, but when I'm welding a feather on, that pointy side is fine because it's going to be a little bit of a weld and stitched on there, and you're never going to see it. So these are typical feathers that you'd have as a bulk feather. So you'd have your big feathers, and then you'd have these maybe as the next row, and then the next row would be smaller and smaller as you work up to the shoulder of the bird, and that's how you do it. So the foot shear is nice because when Michelle's helping me or one of my staff is helping me, and they're not comfortable using that big heavy shear. It can be done by hand. So I have a hand, it's called a Beverly shear, and it's a handheld shear. And this is also a foot shear. So the foot shear is basically designed for cutting straight lines. And it's for light gauge material also. So 18 gauge is the maximum these foot shears like to work with. Any thicker than that, and it's just not strong enough or set up for that type of material. But this works great because you can put it in. This one I'm just going to cut off in bulk, and you just line it up with the inside here, line it up, and then the big lever allows your body weight to work the shear. The shear cuts a nice straight line every time. There, so now we have a single feather that we can cut with the Beverly. Also allows you to move the material as you're cutting it. So as it feeds and cuts, I can push the material into it, following that line and making a curved cut. So you don't have to always just cut straight pieces. I tempered the teeth, so by heating it up with a torch and making it red hot, and then quenching it in oil, I tempered it like you would a knife blade or a sword. And that allows the Rockwell hardness of the steel to increase dramatically and prevents, I mean, this is still sharp after months of use and even cutting stainless with it. So it's still like, you can still feel the edge of sharpness on it. So it worked really well. And now I'll get a lot longer longevity out of these teeth. And it's almost the equivalent of a more expensive machine just by that simple step. So that's one of the ways that I'll modify cheaper tools to last longer and do a better job.